genuine self-acceptance and graceful progress. This healing is to address habits of ignoring conscience, driving through discomfort, and not honoring one's highest wisdom. There are occasional exceptions when self-sacrifice is warranted. However, self-sacrifice is a violation of natural law and unsustainable. Anyone worth your time and effort does not want you to sacrifice yourself to fulfill their little whims. Children especially know that a parent must be comfortable in their role in order to provide consistent care. The false belief that self-sacrifice is a sign of genuine love is clearing from the epigenome and from the ancestry. In the astral body, cords are clearing from the distant past that kept your soul connected to vows of martyrdom. These vows are being unpacked, processed, and integrated so that you may stand in an appropriate position to them. Self-understanding and self-forgiveness are washing through the astral body to the history of the soul. We can't undo history. However, the experiences of the past, when unpacked, are tremendous learning tools. They are instruments for expanding wisdom. In this case, an understanding of human nature as it shows up within the context of limitations and boundaries. Particularly interesting, I think, is how constraints on the flow of clarity fall away over time. It is interesting to me that they tend to dissolve in a particular order, similar to all people. Each person is unique. People have different lessons to learn, in varying orders. However, clearly, the learning of some lessons depends upon the mastery of others. Wisdom unfolds in an orderly manner. Therefore, the clearing of the windows of perception will tend to follow predictable patterns in spite of each person's unique nature. The download is being received regarding the appropriate order for the unfoldment of true wisdom. This flies in the face of shortcuts and the hype over actions which aim for the goal rather than the process. Conscience is embracing the concept of taking the steps of life in order, appropriately, and building a foundation which is solid, upon which true physical and spiritual evolution can stand. Under this, clearing expectations placed upon others to give beyond their capacity and resentment when they don't. When one's own issues have not been unraveled, then projecting them onto others is almost certain. There is a form in the astral body and the web of life that propagates imbalances through this type of projection. This is particularly impactful in families. It looks like something, like a dark web of threads that connects people through common suffering. Putting attention indifferently upon this dark web form and anchoring awareness to the home of being at the same time. The light of being floods the astral body and the web of life. It reveals the pattern of misery-loving company as a motivator for sharing pain. To efficiently uphold honorable behavior in ourselves, and thus act as inspiration for those we love, it is necessary to establish passionate focus upon the solutions in the healing process. The dark web is a smaller infinity than the web of life itself. It adds color and texture in a way that makes life more beautiful when one remains ungripped by its talons. Also, the proportion between the darkness and the light should be such that together they enhance the glory of divine expression in this material world. This proportion is a universal form. When the dark and light are balanced accordingly, remaining beyond the darkness is effortless. There is no chance of eliminating all darkness entirely. Everything we know as reality would vaporize if we didn't have both light and shadows. However, mastery means balancing awareness itself on that spot of optimal alignment that promotes maximum grace through every experience. The frequency of this optimal proportion is downloading into the causal and astral levels of the body. Here it is stabilizing as a sacred form, designed to underlie all expressions of divine intelligence as they rise into the material world, through you, as you. External pressures, especially time pressure, will naturally at times be unavoidable. Expanding understanding that everyone functions within this same field of time. This means that when you are running late, it is possible for others to run late as well. It would be wrong to assume that you are the only one who falls behind. Also, because the actions of every person are unfolding simultaneously in all parts of the world, there is an overarching order by which these actions rise and fall. Did you know that every 15 minutes the moon enters a new segment of its cycle? That means that waiting a few minutes can greatly impact the mind and emotions ruled by the moon. Who decides when an action shall rise and when an action shall fall? Is it our individual decision? No. That great universal intelligence that orchestrates every action in every part of the universe ultimately determines the flow of all actions. Knowing this helps the 4 dense levels of the body ease into a state of comfort as we navigate through life's responsibilities. We go forth, focusing on the process, trusting that the outcomes will arrive according to divine will. Then, witnessing the unfoldment of the results becomes a pleasure. Experiences in the material world commonly show up in bits and pieces, in fits and starts. This material world, in its diversity, with its boundaries and limitations, never manages to totally and completely express the inexpressible. As humans, we constantly deal with a dichotomy of reality being boundless and experience of reality being bound. Our awareness, our consciousness, bridges the gap between expressed and unexpressed. All of this is one. However, through the filter of the human nervous system, the one appears as an endlessly churning ocean of isolated expressions. From the perspective of the isolated expressions alone, how can there be any peace? The peace and the resources to make everything fit together comfortably, appropriately, and successfully is the gift of divine grace. Essentially, grace restores wholeness. Health is wholeness. Grace and compassion are offered from the heart to the whole body. Particularly the areas in greatest need are offered the frequency of divine grace. This frequency establishes the will of God in the body's intelligence for the areas that have fallen ill. When the intelligence responsible for maintaining health of these tissues and organs rises to a state of grace, then it fulfills its responsibility to maintain balance and bring about healthy transformation. As divine grace washes through the areas of the body that are suffering, these areas create a responding frequency of gratitude. When a suffering area is filled with its own self-made gratitude, it becomes a magnet for even more healing energy. Thus, a virtuous cycle is created, whereby the areas that are ill attract precisely the resources required to bring them back to health. In the physical and etheric bodies, establishing a 112-point matrix in the areas where illness is sitting. Self-acceptance sets the condition for integrating the ability to witness action. Self-acceptance leads to acceptance of outcome, whatever it may be. Even if an outcome requires some amendment or change, this amendment or change cannot take place until we accept the reality as it is. Therefore, action rides on this process of moving forward, trusting one's inner wisdom, and enjoying the unfoldment of the outcome. Then, based on conscience and higher inner wisdom, taking the next step forward. In this way, with this simple formula, the actions which liberate one from illness and suffering unfold. Thank you for being with me.